Yeah, but every degree that we avoid, every degree of heating that we avoid is going to make a huge difference. There's a big difference between 1 degree Celsius and 2 degrees Celsius, you know. So every degree of heating that we avoid is going to make a difference. So although I think we are committed to some warming already, and I heard that, you know, when I was at school in the US in 2000, 2001, that doesn't mean we throw up our hands. If you ask me what I'd like to write about is a mindset of the CEO of a fossil fuel company. I know George Saunders has just written a book where, you know, he's talking to a CEO of a fossil fuel company who's on his deathbed. I haven't read it yet though. Um, and in my dealings with the people who came through Jamaica, we have exploration for oil going on now in our waters, and different companies would show up at different times, and they would often come to my office, you know, to try and, you know, diffuse the environmental objection. And I think their attitude was largely, if we don't do it, someone else will. And secondly, I would always ask them if they had children. And their secondary belief was their children would deal with whatever problems that generation was facing, and the technology would be able to do that. They had very short-term horizons, and I think that's true of politics as well. We're just looking at the next election. We're looking at the people who work in the industries that maybe have to leave, or definitely have to leave. They don't want to hear anything about it. As you say, a developer doesn't want to hear anything about it. And we just endlessly kick the can down the road, leaving future generations to deal with whatever problems there are. But you know, Hurricane Melissa that hit Jamaica, about a third of the island late last year. I went down to missed Kingston, so Kingston was hardly damaged at all. And I went down to the west to see it about 8 weeks after the hurricane, so not immediately. And the town where my grandparents spent some time is a little town called Black River in the southwest. And it's been completely devastated, destroyed. And that, of course, has fallen from the headlines. And it's you can sort of sit back and watch and see, well, what's going to happen now? Are we going to build back in exactly the same way as we did before, that was so incredibly vulnerable to the storm, to the storm surge, to the wind, to the flooding from a very major river, the Black River, that's right nearby? And so far, I see no signs that we're not going to just put back what was there. So there are these opportunities I don't think climate change is all this bad news, which is always framed, you know, in the newspapers. Oh, we're all going to have to wear a sweater inside and go back to live in caves, and you know, that kind of argument. I think actually it's an opportunity to make improvements to the way we live. And the one I like to talk about is the time spent in cars in traffic. This blows my mind, you know, especially when I go to a big US city or any large city. I mean, Kingston's terrible too, but I can sit in traffic in Miami and think, guys, you really prefer this to really good public transportation? Public transportation that's safe, that's cheap, that's fast, that's reliable, that's frequent. You prefer to sit in your car for hours and hours just to get from your home to your work. So I think it's an opportunity for us to make things better in lots of ways.